afternoon and welcome to the Sailplane Grand Prix here in Santiago in Chile on day 2, but still race 1. As you can see from the video picture, we're in South America, and we'll just zoom in to the race area. We're down at near the start on the bottom of the picture. In fact, we're actually probably a bit closer to the finish line, to be really honest. And the competitors have all been launched. Sorry we couldn't bring you the grid walk, by the way. We had a few technical problems. We'll post it later so you can see and hear some of the answers from the competitors. Weather today, nice and sunny, better than yesterday. It was very murky, couldn't see very far yesterday, couldn't see the mountains, and the sun couldn't get to the ground, and we didn't get enough temperature, so it was not possible to have a safe race yesterday. Today's much different. We have a bit more temperature, we're up to 29 degrees outside, and that's giving us climb rates now of 2 to 3 meters, and our highest competitor, Sebastian Nagel, up at 3,250 meters. We'll show you a bit more about where they're climbing in a minute, but just wanted to run you through the task today. We've got 266 kilometers. So from the start line they will head north up to turn point 1, or TP1, you can see off in the distance there, and the train you can see underneath us here will mean that the route that they take is not direct at all. They'll run along the ridges, and we expect the last third of the first leg to have 2 choices, and it depends on the altitude that they can get. If they can get very high, so 3,500 meters, they will take a right hand route to the first turn point, but if they can't do that, they'll go the lower route round to the left, and if it's somewhere in between we might see a split in the pack, so that could be quite interesting. From turn point 1 they go west, it's about 27 kilometers, and from there that's going to be quite tricky as well. There's a couple of routes to get to that second turn point. There's a sort of route to the left and another route to the right, and depending on which one works, they are likely to come back in the same direction, or if it hasn't worked very well they'll take the opposite one to turn point 3, which you can see at the top of the picture now. From turn point 3 they'll need probably the most altitude, probably 2,500 to 3,000 meters, and from there they start to run south, but again it's not quite straightforward. The first part is straight down the ridge you can see in front, but they will need to climb at Lagunas, and from Lagunas out to turn point 4, which is on the edge of the valley, as Benji steers us down there. You can see it's not on the ridge, it's out in the valley, and that turn point, they will need to get a decent altitude there, probably 2,700 meters from that point, before they go round the turn point 4. From there they head again further south with a little bit of west in it to turn point 5, and this turn point's out in the valley as well, and from there to get home they need 1,800 meters, because as they go from turn point 5 to turn point 6 there's a big ridge you can see in the middle of that track, and they've got to be able to get over that, and we believe that that's around 1,450 meters. So leaving at 1,800 meters will safely get them over that, and then they can run to turn point 6, round that, across the valley to the checkpoint here, which is just 9 kilometers from the finish line. Thanks Benji. And then from there it's full final glide to the finish line. The finish line is at 850 meters and the airfield's at 686 meters, so worked it out earlier, 164 meters above the airfield here is the finish line. Again, if they finish below that, there are penalties, and back at the start again, if they're too early, there's a penalty, and Yeah, sorry, Benji's just pointing out to me we've got 9 minutes 50 seconds before the start, and we can see all the competitors now climbing just before the start, and they've got a decent altitude, 3,200 meters for Fridien from Switzerland. And just looking to see who else is there. The start altitude today, 2,200 meters. So where they're climbing at the moment, they'll come off that hill back towards the start. With 5 minutes to go, all of the competitors have to turn left, and that's a safety feature. If they do turn right, they get a penalty. And with 1 minute to go, they must be behind the start line or its extensions. So we're expecting to see the competitors come off the hill and back towards the start line, probably running in the last sort of 2 or 3 minutes. Joining us today, we have Alex Kaufman, who's one of their local pilots. Speaks lots of languages, which will be very helpful, and he knows the mountains very well. Alex, welcome.
Hi, Sean. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Great to have this wonderful event happening one more time here in Chile. And well, I hope I can help you out with a little bit of local knowledge of the ridges and places where they have to go.
Great, thank you, Alex. They're climbing well at the moment. They're up at 3,000 meters. Who's at the bottom of the pile? Still Lucas from Poland has only got 1,800 meters. We hope he makes it up to start height. So just thinking about the task today, this run up to turn point 1, we've got about halfway. Lagunas, I understand, is a good hotspot to climb on.
That's right. The turn point, actually, turn point 1 isn't a very tricky turn point, but there today is a condition that they have to take in account, that they might have lower cloud base in the valley of Los Andes, and that might be a thing that makes it impossible to actually use a higher ridge behind Democoin. We can see after in the center of the screen that is the Democoin Ridge, and the mountain that run towards the higher places are the ideal way to go in there. But if the cloud base actually makes it impossible to go through that pass that you have in the middle of the screen up there before turn point 1, they will have to fly around Copin and make a little bit longer run. So hard for us to say what the cloud base is doing there in the valley. But as you said, if they can make the highest possible all the way up to cloud base at Lagunas, they will have quite a fast run up north. So depending on the weather, is what they will be able to do. It might be also possible that the first ones might still have some openings and passages through the clouds towards the higher places, but the ones that stay behind might be blocked out as the afternoon progresses. So it's going to be interesting.
Okay, so an interesting task.
Absolutely, for the day it is, yeah.
A little bit about the weather. We talked a bit about the temperature. We were very interested in this to try and break the inversion that we have here today. As a feature of flying here in Santiago, we need to wait for that temperature to come good. It looks like we've got a westerly wind, which will help that. Certainly westerly at the surface, and north-northwest at altitude and further north. But only 5 to 10 knots. Yeah.
That's right. Wind is not going to be a big issue today. They will not be looking for the higher ridges and use the winds towards these ridges to get altitude. Today, the challenge is actually to stay away from the darker places. Today, if we look outside, we still have this influence of the Argentinian air coming over the mountains, and that's creating all this overcast. That was actually the reason that yesterday the day was blocked out totally. The sun was gone away for all day long, Today it looks a little bit better. This should improve in the next days, but we still have this heavy overcast. Actually, in the afternoon, we also have a few thunderstorms that might develop up in the mountains. And if some of these thunderstorms move further west to us, that might create even a little bit of showers. So today they will be looking for the heavy lift under these thunderstorms, but obviously before they really heavy develop. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So a bit about the local weather here, just outside the window. Unfortunately, we can't bring you a video shot of that, but it was pretty blue, and all we could see was some clouds in the mountains, and we could see some fairly heavy build-up towards the Argentinian border. However, the area we're flying in should be clear.
That's right. That's right. As you talked about this inversion, as long as we have the sun shining through, this inversion normally breaks through around this time of the day, and we could actually refer this to the altitude they are flying. So some of them made it all the way over the 3,000 meter level. You can see they're are running now backwards to the start line with the altitude enough to approach the start line with a maximum altitude that is set today at 2,200 meters.
Yeah.
So they're doing quite well. I would guess that the inversion is gone at least at the level they're flying now. There might be a little further inversion towards the lower places. Hopefully they can stay up there.
Okay, we're now within, just come up to 3 minutes 10 seconds, so they're in that period of time where they can only turn left, and again this is just a safety feature. With 1 minute to go, they need to be behind the line and its extensions, otherwise there's yet another penalty. So they're all making their way now to the right side of or the correct side, shall I say, of the start line. Just looking at the winners and losers so far, Giorgio Galetto with a maximum height just under 3,000 meters, and Lucas from Poland looks like he's struggling a bit down at 1,700 meters. We'll see if we can't find out where he is. Oh, just on the left-hand side of the screen there,
Yeah, you can see Lucas is still, we call that place potreros. That's basically translated into fields, grass fields. You can see it's a little bit flatter down there. You can see some cattle sometimes grazing in that area. That is actually a good generator of lifts. But if you get tangled in there and you can't find it, you will have to move around. So Lucas, for sure, he'll be searching for a little bit longer before he can approach the start.
Yeah, Lucas just climbing just under half a meter there.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're just under 2 minutes, 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Sorry, 1 minute and 45 seconds to go. Competitors coming back behind the line, and they now have 40 seconds to get behind the line. 3 Victor, that's Tilo, and looks like Oscar Bravo. They're still Tingy, yes, from New Zealand to get behind the line. They should just about do it. 25 seconds to go. Lucas is still searching for a climb at 1,700 meters, and he's going to be the wrong side of the line. So unfortunately, Lucas is going to get a penalty before everybody started. So just coming into the 1 minute now, and 1 minute now, and it looks like we'll have 2 competitors with their penalties there, Tilo and Oscar Bravo and Mark Tingy from New Zealand. Right.
They also have a restriction in speed here, so if you're fairly high and you want to use your altitude into speed, you have to be careful not to overfly the 170 kilometer ground speed mark. As the wind, we said today, it's quite not that strong, so there's not a big influence of tailwinds today.
Yeah, so for instance, Sebastian Nagel at 2,500 meters, he's got 300 meters to lose in 20 seconds. And he's got to maintain his speed as well, down at 170 kph. That's quite a tall order. So they're coming into start now with 5 or 6 seconds to go. Alpha Tango
René Vidal.
René, yeah, the local hero, he's away. Start gate's now open. He's first through the line. Looks like second is going to be Thilo. And Quebec X-Ray there is Roman Merchek, all heading off together. Whilst a good start's good, it's not as important as being in the right place.
That is right, that is right. But definitely, you see it's just a few seconds, but there are a few challenges. If you, like René, start heading the whole thing, he's the local. He knows the place, he knows the ridges, he knows where the thermals get started, and he's leading now the whole pack. Some of the pilots actually might know that René, he's a specialist in this area, and they will be following for a while. It's quite a common strategy in this kind of racing. But he did a good start, right on time, right on altitude, and right on speed. So that's good.
Okay, so the winners from the start, a bit close to tell, but we've definitely got one loser, unfortunately, and that's Lucas from Poland, who's still struggling to get some altitude off on the left-hand side of our screen now. So Alex, from this location, we can see that René is starting to cut right. The ground underneath them is fairly high to the left. Why would René be turning right?
With the altitude René has, he might be going straight for the bowl that is on his nose to the little bit further left, just where you can see the black line crossing the ridges.
In the middle of the screen.
In the middle of the screen. That's what we call laboratory. That is a good place with good generating lift. You have two air masses colliding there, the air mass that is coming from the south and the air mass that's coming from the valley north. They collide up there, and even independently of the wind that you have, you get fairly good lift. So that place is actually where you start to get the altitude to follow the ridge further to the right part of the screen into the area where you can see the snow, just on the side of number 3 where the palette names are. That is called Españoles. So if you get lift in laboratory, you will follow the ridge into the higher mountains, and you have a straight flight towards Lagunas. You will actually reach Lagunas almost at the peak of Lagunas. Now, one more time, I don't know what the clouds are doing right now there. Españoles might be in the clouds, and they might not be able to do that. You can see actually René started to turn a little bit further left towards the northwesternly side to approach laboratory a little bit further outside. He might have found some sink or something that didn't allow him to continue all the way inside.
What's been interesting is that while you've been talking, I've just been looking at there's a group on the left-hand side of the track led by Roman Merchek, who decided to stop and climb. They've got a reasonable climb, but they've now just started to leave, so they're a little bit behind, but they've got a bit more altitude. Roman's up at 2,160 meters, and we've got climb rates now. Looks like they've reached the laboratory, and Didier started climbing there.
You see, most of them actually follow the ridge of the Eagle Rock into the laboratory, and because all that ridge generates good lift, sometimes it's worth just flying along it and not circling it, just fly along it in that lift, keep the glider in the lift, and you'll be able to follow the whole ridge, climbing along the ridge without circling.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what Didier and René have done. And Echo Juliet there is Bostian following closely. We've got a group climbing just on the right-hand side, Alfa Romeo, Ginter Zub, and Golf Tango. That's Giorgio Galetto. Sorry, not Giorgio Galetto. That's
René,
Thomas Gostner is Golf Tango.
Right.
Sorry. Yeah. Didier's reached the top of the ridge and turned left. So
now there's another group that actually continued flying north. They didn't stop where René stopped. René is still circling in a thermal there. I'm not really sure if that is really powerful. The rest continued north to what we call the northern part of laboratory. That bowl that they have underneath is laboratory, so they're reaching the northern side of it. That ridge sometimes is really productive, especially where the deer is approaching now the higher part of laboratory. That place is really productive sometimes and gives you great lift to connect into the mountains that he has in his back now to the eastern side. Or you just decide to continue north, crossing that valley. There is a valley of a little river, Rio Colina, and you have to cross that section. That's about a 5 kilometer, 6 kilometer long section without any lift, but you will reach Maraco, the mountain that they have in front. It looks like everybody is pressing. Nobody's staying and taking altitude to connect to the higher mountains where the snow is on the screen. They are staying on the outside. Quebec's X-ray.
That's Roman,
yeah. He decided to go low. It is fast, but it's risky. If you had a chance to read the day probably before the start and you understand that these levels are working and productive, you can do that. But you don't have any room for mistake, not at all. You just really have to find something where he's getting now and get altitude, because if not, he's not able to cross the next pass into the section of Las Lagunas.
So we're about a third of the way down the task. No real big split yet. Everybody keeping an eye on each other. Unfortunately, Lucas from Poland is still trying to get some altitude, get back to the start. So we'll keep an eye on him and let you know what he's up to. Meanwhile, a bit further ahead, Benji's just giving us a screen of the next group. Thomas Gostner has decided altitude is going to be his friend, and he's stopping and climbing. Golf November Golf Tango, Thomas there. It's Golf November. I was trying to look for him on the screen. Andres, one of the local pilots, sticking with him, and Yankee, Giorgio Galetto, 2,400 meters. Everybody ahead is around the 2,000 to 2,200 meters mark. That extra 200 meters is worth having tonight.
Absolutely, absolutely. Did you have any input of the pilots in respect of the strategy that we're trying to fly today? Did anybody give you any hint? Are they going to try to stay high, or? I talked to a few, and Thilo, for example, he said definitely he will try to get high as possible in Lagunas to approach the race, the major part of the race with altitude. But that's a strategy. It's
not normally what happens in reality.
That's right.
in fact, we can see Thilo down at 1,800 meters here. How far have they got to go to Lagunas now? Is it? It's this group of hills on the right in front of them.
Actually, you have to, where you can see that yellow patches, that is called La Trucha. After that, in the back, in the upper part of the screen, you will have to go through that pass. And under, that's exactly, where you can see turn point 4, that ridge is Lagunas.
Okay. So got a little way to go.
There is still a way to go there. Yeah.
Yep.
And they actually have to fly through a valley that is a little bit, I wouldn't say, you have to get a little bit respect of that valley, because if you don't find any lift in there, you will be ending up landing in Los Andes. So, and before that valley, you have a pass that you have to fly through with around 2,200 meters, 2,100 meters. So we will have to see. Some of them, Thomas is actually getting that altitude. You see, these guys will just have the altitude barely to cross the pass into the valley of Lagunas. And normally when you approach that yellow patch in front of Didier, that is called La Trucha, you should find lift there. And you should take advantage of that and then fly into the Valley of Lagunas and approach Lagunas on the other side of the valley.
Okay, so the story so far is we've got a couple of gliders who've stopped to climb, Giorgio Galetto and his fellow countryman Thomas Gostner, who've climbed to just over 2,400 metres, and the leading group who are down around the 2,000 metre mark or just below ahead, and we'll expect to see Giorgio and Thomas catch this group up, running along the higher ridges, and expect to join the leading group. In terms of distance flown, we'll see if we can't change that for you, and that's distance to go. Just got distance flown so far, so just 24 kilometers into the race. It's showing Lucas as having started now, which is good. Didier stopping and turning now.
You see, that's actually the place where we would normally stop for that. It might be a good lift, but even if it's not really strong, you should make use of that lift in that area. After that, it gets pretty flat. These hills you can see, they're very round shaped. There's no good starter point for big thermal unless you have a good indicator, a nice cloud or something where you could say, I fly towards that thing, and you find most surely lift underneath it. But it's a tricky place to fly through.
Yeah, Didier just took one turn, 1 meter.
Exactly.
Not enough. Move
not
on.
enough. Not enough. This is a very I wouldn't say usual day, but for weather like this, where we get these inversions in the morning, we get cold air masses being pushed in from Argentina, humidity from our coast. We tend to have these slower starts. This is what in our competition mode here in Chile always happens. The beginning is slow because you have to work yourself up, and you don't want to stay too long, and you get the pressure of, well, I have to fly along, I have to go, I have to make time and speed. But then again, you have to gain altitude, and if it's hard to find and the lift is not there, some pilots might get into trouble because they are just pulled along with the others, and they might do mistakes. So it's
just following this group. You see Mark Tingey not got the same altitude as Didier and Gintis, and having to go round the bottom of that spine. Didier and Gintis just going over the top of the ridge here. A great view that Benji's giving us with Silent Wings, and great data from Angela Casado, who's been working very hard to get the best coverage we possibly can in this local mountainous area. Off in the distance we can see Roman Merchek there, out in the valley. Just look at his height. In distance terms he's only a kilometre behind the leaders, but his altitude is a couple of 100 metres down.
Actually, that strategy of Thomas and Giorgio that we just saw, he's flying along the energy line of that ridge, and he will be able to keep pressing on without turning to fly into the Valley of Lagunas and cross the valley safely. We can see Didier. He's approaching that pass. He's not flying pretty fast right now. He wants to keep this altitude to cross the pass into the Valley of Lagunas. He has to cross the valley. That's actually the pass he's in now. And he has to cross the valley to gain altitude on the other side in Lagunas, that ridge that you can see in front of turn point 4 there on the screen. It's always good to fly along that pass. Sometimes you might even have indicators of clouds that might give you a hint. Well, take a little bit longer way, but make use of the cloud that might be in front of you. But the turn point itself, turn point 1, guides you into the higher mountains, guides you further east. So there is a point where you have to definitely decide to have to go east into the higher mountains. You just don't want to stay out there on the westerly ridges. Basically, we can see all of them passing into the valley of Lagunas, pretty low, just enough altitude to cross this pass. Don't be scared, he didn't fly through the mountain. But it's an indicator that they have barely the altitude. I said 2,000 meters, so flying 1,900, 1,800 and something. These guys a little bit higher, they can press now, but they have to find the lift on the other side in Lagunas.
It's a split
Yeah.
here. It looks like there's one group going right, and Didier and Gintis carrying on
right
to the left.
It is a if you've flown this area quite a lot, there's one that actually didn't make the pass. 3 Victor, that is Thilo Hollighaus. Well, Thilo knows this place pretty well. I think he got pulled by the other pilots to keep pressing on, and that is exactly what happens if you don't have the altitude. You will be ending up flying along these ridges off the way, and you will have to find lift there. Now, the split that we have a little bit further ahead is because you fly into this valley and you have the sensation that you have to fly out of the valley to gain altitude and find some altitude, because if not, you will be tangled inside of the valley. If you have 100, 150 meters more, you will have a clearer view of the valley, and it gives you a lot more confidence to fly across the valley towards Lagunas. But actually, where they're flying in is a good generator of lift.
Yeah, and Didier and Gintis have found a climb, and they're climbing. And the group that were on the right-hand side have obviously seen that, and they're coming back to join them. They don't want them to get too far away.
That's right. That area actually, in, I don't know, 20 years ago or something, we would never have flown into that valley this low and just straight out the valley to find lift. We will always cross to the other side to Lagunas. So where they're circling now, we call this the thermal of Mario, in respect of Mario Reyes. He's actually tugging today. He is a very, very, very knowledgeable pilot in this area. And he started to do this. He one day found a cloud out there and said, why not? Let's fly this thing. And it's in the shadow of the wind. It's on the, all the indicators would say you don't fly there, and he flew and got this tremendous lift. So it's actually interesting. It's working again.
Well, they're climbing 2.5, 3 meters, so it's great. Just zooming out a little to see where everybody else is, and Thomas Gostner and Giorgio Galetto that we were talking about earlier, who took that extra height, now running in at 2,200, 2,300 meters, where the group ahead have only just climbed up to that altitude.
That's right.
So they'll be back with them shortly.
I have a feeling that Thomas Gostner would cross the valley straight towards Lagunas. I don't think that he will join all the group now circling in the middle of the valley. I think he would cross all the way to the other side.
It's very tempting to do so. When you see a group climbing like that, you want to go towards it. You're drawn towards it.
On the other side, if you're the first one to reach a hotspot where you should find thermals, and you're the first one, you're the one almost responsible of finding that lift.
Yeah.
And that puts pressure on you, and that. Well, actually, Thomas, you can see he turned a little bit further to the left, and he's going to the place where everybody else is climbing.
Yeah. Yes, that draw, that magnetic draw of a climbing gaggle. Just looking around to see who else is doing something slightly different. Mario Kissling, we didn't see much of him at the start. He was back in the pack. He's trying to find his own thermal there to see what height Mario's at. Oh, he's down at 1,900, 2,000 meters now. And John Gatfield's there as well in Yo. John, you could do with a bit more height, down at 1,700 meters. Perhaps he can cut back left and join in with that group thermaling to the left. Didier's still there, the top of the pile. now at 2,500 meters. That's quite respectable.
That is a good climb. It's going to be interesting to see how high it will take them. If this thermal gets you up to 3,100 meters, you might be actually be able to fly right away from that position north to Democoin, getting yourself closer to turn point 1 without going further east to the lagunas.
Yeah.
But you will have to climb at least at 3,100, 3,200 meters. If the cloud base permits, it might be possible. So let's see what happens. Didier looks like he's flatting out, and maybe he starts to press forward.
His climb rate was dropping off, and you could see him thinking, well, shall I go, or shall I just take a couple more turns? But he's decided to push on.
He's still flying slow. He's searching. He's searching. He's centering that thing.
He's got a better climb now.
The great thing about
meters.
this thermal is, if you look at from above and you zoom out a little bit, it's in the middle of the valley. There is no obstacle. There's no ridge. It's really great to work on a thermal like this, and it makes it easy to center it and to find the core of that thermal. And it gets more tricky if you're flying close to the ridges like lagunas, because you will be flying S's and making figure of eights, and you have other gliders below us, below you or above you. But this circumstance is just fantastic. It's in the middle of nowhere, and it's just shifting
just one turn further to the north.
Yeah,
and they've changed from 1.5 to 2 meters, and now climbing at 4, nearly 5 meters.
Now, you mentioned a northwesterly wind. I actually, if we were reminding now the view we just have from above, I just can't find that northwesterly wind. It's still looks like a southerly wind there, because everybody's shifting to the north.
Yep.
So there is still the influence of the lower wind levels in that area. You see, everybody's shifting a little bit north.
Or do you think they've just flown a little bit further north into the breeze? And it's changed that way.
It's changed, yeah, definitely. It's still going 3.5 meters, 4 meters for some of them.
Just been pointed out to me that Lucas, who was really struggling before the start,
joined the pack.
Actually, he's managed to catch up.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, that's excellent. It's excellent.
He's not very high at 1,800 meters, but at least he's got to climb now, 2.8 meters, and it looks like John Gatfield's joining him as well. And we're just going to go back to the other main group circling, where we've got better data. Yeah, Didier now at the top of the pile has now started to leave. Didier up at just over 3,000 meters with Gintis.
Have you pointed out, Sean, the gliders that are flying here? We have, it's all, well, obviously 18 meters, but we have Ventus 2, Ventus 3s, we have quite broad.
In fact, we have 6 Ventus 3s, 3 Ventus 2s, 3 JS1s, 6 ASG 29s, and an Ash 26.
Yeah. Who's flying the Ash 26?
Tom.
Tom,
from the US. It's actually a British glider.
Yeah. Phil's glider.
Phil, indeed, yes. Yeah. Phil Sturley. And he gave us a report earlier, no scurvy. And some of his friends at home will know what that's all about. So Didier is pushing off on his own.
Well, remember I mentioned that you could actually press north without going to the higher ridges of lagunas. What you have behind the name tags there is the ridges of lagunas, but Didier actually decided to go north. He will, well, I think use the little hump he has in front of him. It's called the Apoyo of Lagunas. That's the start ridge of Lagunas. It's a good generator of lift, and looks like everybody's pointing that way. There is actually a group going to Lagunas. Yeah,
they're going on the right-hand side of the picture.
I would say this is the very major split that we have in the race. We just saw one in the beginning when they flew into the valley and everybody ended up in the same thermal, but now they're really decided to split up. There's one group flying further east towards Lagunas, and one is pressing north. into the valley.
So this will be interesting as we watch this unfold. Winners and losers. Winners definitely Didier out in front. He's being very positive, isn't he? Just pushing on like that. But unfortunately, Mario Kisling didn't quite get the height that he needed, and John Gatfield's just dropping that back a little. Needs a good climb, and then he'll be back with them. Just seeing where they're going. Distance to the turn point. Didier is closest with 45 kilometres to run. René Vidal not too far away at 46 kilometres. Bostian, Gintis and Sebastian Nagel. I'll tell you who has been quiet today, and that's Sebastian Carver. He's 47 kilometres away in the middle of the pack, just biding his time.
Well, but you have seen Sebastian flying. It's not unusual. He sticks to pilots, and he's ice cold, and he does his strategy attacks at the end sometimes. And
yes, we've seen him in previous Grand Prix where he's sort of hanging around like a bad smell in the middle. And
the year I flew the Grand Prix here, and I had it on my tail, and I had Sebastian on my tail the whole day in the last 5 kilometers. He takes you out 2 kilometers, and he ends up even being higher than you, and I don't know how he does it.
Well, he's been working very hard on his glider this week.
Oh, yeah. Well, unfortunately, the glider was not in the shade and had some little bit of the heat damage and the sun exposure damage, so he was working hard on that.
So we've got a group that have gone right and another group that have gone left. Alpha Tango is René Vidal pushing very hard, 200 kilometres an hour now, just over, trying to catch Didier, trying to stick together, keep together. That's probably the answer here.
Right. It's interesting that they didn't stop at that little hump they have behind them to their right. That place is generally a good generator of lift. They're actually really going for the valley all the way across it. They will end up in Democoen. They will see Democoen in front of them. The valley they're crossing is the Aconcagua Valley. That's actually the Aconcagua River, that little river down there. It's not that little, but it is. It hosts the highway, the road from Chile to Argentina. And the little mountain in front of them they will be approaching is called Democoen. The whole ridge will give them a chance to explore the area. Hopefully, if they can do the summit of that little mountain, they can continue the ridge towards the east, towards the higher mountains. And if that thing is out of the clouds, they will actually be able to follow that thing over a pass straight into turn point 1. Yeah. That is actually the strategy that I would pursue if I can see that the ridge towards the center part of the screen, in the middle, upper middle of the screen, that ridge is out of the clouds. That's the thing I would like to follow towards turn point 1. You can see actually turn point 1 in the upper part of the screen. There is this little pass. That's the thing you have to fly through. If that doesn't work, you will have to use all the area to the left side of the screen and fly around that mountains and fly back easternly to turn point 1.
Well, what's interesting here is the group on the right hand side, both Sebastians, 200 or 300 meters higher than the group to the left.
That's right.
Just a bit further back.
That's the altitude that gives you Lagunas. Lagunas is a very, very, very strong lift generator, and that altitude gives you really the chance to approach Democoen from the top and don't lose any time in finding any lift on the ridge of Democoen. I don't know, how is Thilo doing? Thilo, we saw him.
Oh, he's down at 2,200 meters, but a little further back.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, out in the valley.
That is interesting. Thilo took a totally different route. He actually flew around El Cobre, and he's in the middle of the valley. That looks fantastic, but it's kind of It's respectful what he's doing. He's flying a long way without any lift. There will be no thermals out there. He's very high above the ground. He has to cross that 10 kilometers he has in front of him towards the ridges, and that's a totally different strategy. Now, he isn't that much lower than Didier House. Didier is on the ridge of Democoen, and he's further east, and Thilo just crossing the valley. Now, remember, Thilo has flown, I would say, at least 3, 4, 5 times here in Chile, and from the very first Grand Prix he has flown here, and he knows the area pretty well already. That is the general route along this this track. Here, it's interesting if you can get altitude here and you fly east, even if it takes a little bit longer way. But if you can get lift here and use a ridge on the east, that would be fantastic. But it looks like everybody's just using the energy of that slopes and keeps pressing north.
Yeah, looking at the climb rates, actually, it wasn't giving them anything, and they
No,
needed to
no,
get off it.
no.
So even by staying on that ridge, and Thilo not staying on the ridge, he hasn't lost anything. He's
Not
done
at
okay.
all. Very, very interesting.
So they'll be coming back together as Thilo comes across the valley. Didier and René now together. Just looking to see where they're going to go to next. The turn point is beyond that mountain range in front of us.
Exactly.
So they've got a big climb to do.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why I referred, if you could connect to the higher ridges and stay high,
Yeah.
you fly directly into the turn point. It looks like nobody's actually has been able to do that. Even Sebastian, that flew in to Democoen with 150, 200 meters higher, was able to do that. Victor Golf.
Yes, Werner Amann.
Amann, yeah.
Yeah, 3,120 meters.
That is interesting. He actually spent time climbing and is approaching this totally different.
He's going a long way right.
It is a long way
Yeah.
right, but if you're staying connected to the higher ridges and it's out of the clouds, it will save you a lot of time. It will definitely. That's actually what I was trying to explain a while ago as the ideal strategy for this day. Stay high. Golf November, flown by Andrés Errázuriz, is a little bit further ahead. Thank you. Is doing exactly the same. Andrés Errázuriz is one of the local pilots here. He was invited to fly this Grand Prix after Carlos Roca unfortunately had to jump out. And Andrés flies normally an Arcus, flew a Ventus for many years, a very knowledgeable pilot in this area.
He was telling me earlier that he only has 4,000 hours in the mountains.
That's
He's been
right.
flying for
That's
31
right.
years
That's
here.
right. He's a great explorer of the mountains. I wouldn't say that he's a very competitive pilot in terms of flying fast, but he's a very, very good explorer of the mountains and new ways and new passes and new strategies. If you want to have a great day of flying, either with somebody in a glider or with a glider following you or guiding you, Andrés is the guy to call. He knows the area very well. And you can see he actually spent a little bit more time climbing, and he's approaching this higher. This is going to be interesting to see what Werner does and how this yields for him in respect to the gliders that are leading the pack but lower and taking the longer route outside around Copin Lake.
Yeah, Werner nearly 1,000 meters higher than the other group to the left-hand side of track, and they're going to have to find a very good climb to catch him now.
Yeah, normally that area where they're flying now, it's called the White Stones. Quite obvious why it's called that. You can see there are some white stones down there at the ridge. They're very, very clearly seen from far away, so you can't miss them. It's a ridge that points out from from that slope into the valley. So you have winds colliding from both sides, and normally it generates good lift.
It's okay, but it's not that special. It's only 1 meter, 2 meters.
It isn't that special. It isn't that strong. And René, knowing the area, actually decided not to stay there and fly along and look for something a little bit stronger ahead. Now,
we've just seen a strong climb. Sebastian Nagel just picked up 2.5, 3 meters.
That is actually something I just wanted to mention. If you are being pushed and you're being anxious and you say, well, let's keep flying for something stronger, sometimes you have to actually make 2 or 3 turns in these 0.5 meter, 1 meter lifts, and they develop once they clear the ground and all the air masses come together from these different sides of these ridges. They come together, they develop in a decent 2.5, 3 meter lift, and that's really reconforting because you stay there for a little bit of while and said, okay, it was worth to spend the time, and it develops into a great lift. So, well, it's part of the strategy, it's part of racing, and obviously part of the local knowledge. Let's see if the local knowledge of René Vidal helps him to find something stronger further ahead.
So they're climbing now just over the 2,000 meter mark, 2,500 meter mark. What height do they need to get over this next mountain ridge?
They need at least 2,600, 2,700 to connect on a straighter line towards turn point 1. You can see Andres, who's flying in the back. He will be approaching this. If he's not able to stay on the easterly ridge, he will be approaching this above them, about 300 meters higher, and he actually connects on a straighter line along the ridge. He doesn't have to turn out every time he finds a ridge that goes out into the valley. He just overflies them. So 3,000 meters definitely is something that you would like to have to...
And Andreas looks like he's stopped and he's trying to get even more height, whereas Werner Armann has pushed on and he's on the north side of the ridge.
Andreas is trying to fly along this ridge and basically fly along the straight black line that he has on his side, because that gives him the chance to fly above the pass or through the pass that he has in front of turn point 1. He would be the only one that is actually pursuing this strategy. All the rest is taking the longer route. And if Andres is flying there, we can say that the ridge is out of clouds. So everybody else pressed and didn't use a little bit of patience. This might be very interesting. I remember many years ago, Mario Kisling once did this. He was very far in the back, but he was like 1,000 meters higher. He was the one finally winning the day.
Yes, just by taking that different route.
Super Mario after that, I think.
And it looks like Andres could fly all the way along this ridge without stopping now to the next turn point.
That's right.
Leaving the others climbing in the valley.
That's right.
Yeah. That would make his day, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I would say this would be make him very proud.
Yeah.
You're being invited to fly the Grand Prix, and you have a chance to actually lead it. That would be fantastic.
Well, Alex, thank you very much indeed for your insights. We'll just give you a break for a little bit.
Perfect.
And,
thank you very much.
We'll have
an
update from Brian. Thank you very much. So, Brian, tell us, what do you know?
It's fantastic, Sean. Everybody's having a great time. It's really exciting race because on this first day, strategy, tactics are beginning to show. They're really important. And we can see that the group of pilots out in front are being quite cagey. Didier's obviously decided that the best way to win this competition is to go flat out from day one. Sebastian's playing his cagey game sitting behind. René's out there in front, and we're seeing it shape up really nicely. But listening to great commentary there from Alex about the place, it makes it the whole picture change. It's beautiful, and we appreciate so much Alex being able to give us that insight. We'll get Alex back on again, folks, as they come up to the first turning point, so he can talk about the strategy for coming out. It's a shame about Lucas, though. He didn't get away quickly. He started to climb, then he drifted down again, but he's done really well. That's really good flying. He's not been phased by it. He's not given up. He's pushed and pushed, and he's catching up with the other guys. What I was wondering, and maybe Alex can help us a little bit when he comes back on, is how much cloud cover we're likely to see out there. Because what the picture that we're seeing shows the mountains beautifully, but it doesn't show that there might be cumulus sitting on the top of some of those mountains. It might be a little bit more difficult to get round them than we think. And the fact that they're flying quite a way out along this edge with a northwesterly wind, it would indicate that maybe there's cumulus building up on the congestus on the top of the mountain.
We'll get that insight a little bit later. We're just watching the group come together now. It seems to be very difficult to resist that climbing gaggle, everybody wanting to get back together. Rene just pushed off on his own a little to the left hand side of the picture, but even Andres is coming back to join the main group.
Well, maybe he's got that problem. Maybe he can't actually fly over the top, so he's going to have to come round it in the end. It was a very good strategy if it had worked. He'd have been really pleased with himself. And Werner's flying really nicely. It's obvious Werner's decided that the tortoise and the hare get high, fly a little bit slower, go in straight lines. He's a very cool dude, Werner, and he's a good mountain man, so he won't be attracted to fly in the group as much as some of them will. Certainly this group seemed to be a bit underconfident about getting separated. Nobody really wants to pull out. When they lead off, there's not consistently somebody leading out in the front. They tend to take it in turns. It's a little bit like the Tour de France this.
Yep.
Who's making the pace? It's your turn, off you go in front. Great view. We see Sebastian's been forced out in front there, which is good. And two Sebastians together. Maybe they've decided that they're twins or something and they can fly together all the time.
Yeah, it's just watching them come over the edge of this ridge and see if they'll... oh no, there's a valley there. That's a better view. Thank you, Benji. Three of them flying together, very close together. Just running at the optimum for these gliders. Around 180 kilometers an hour. About 90 knots.
Do you think that they can see Rene? I think Rene might be just a little bit ahead climbing. And looking at the altitudes, they probably don't have any choice. They've got to run now. They've got to, but they're not running fast.
Yeah.
They're not travelling really quickly. They're travelling quick, but not really quickly. So there's not a lot of energy in that spot.
They'll probably be able to see Rene there, just on the left-hand side of the picture. He's a little lower. So they'll be comfortable at their speed, just catching up with him, making sure that they can keep him in sight.
Yeah, Rene looks like he's a couple of 100 meters lower. He'll probably be carrying on all the way around that side, although I think his Alpha Tango, yeah, he's climbing now. So he's going to lose a little bit here. He's going to lose a little bit because he's going to have to fly quite a bit further to get round to the western side of the hill and towards the turning point. But the great thing about this, Sean, is that we can actually see what's happening. The visuals are fantastic. The coverage is terrific. You can get a real feel for what it must be like. These guys are having a lot of fun flying down the mountain. They're flying beautifully. They're sticking together. They're playing a great tactical game. This is real sport. These very intelligent guys working out how they can get an edge, how they can get in front, and using all the technology they can. It's difficult to explain to people what it feels like to be flying along there at 2,000 and 3,000 meters, but only a few hundred feet up from the ground, on the edge of mountains in the Andes. They have a beautiful view, they have great sensation, and the feeling must be really, really good for them.
Well, we've been working at this for a number of years to get the coverage to be better and better, and now with our YouTube channel, that gives you a chance to comment on what's going on. If you go to the YouTube link, you can see the live chat in the right hand window, and we're watching that. So if you want to ask us a question or want to know about one of your favourite pilots, ask us a question and we'll do our best to come back to you with that. As we can see, the leaders have just stopped, just taken one turn, wasn't quite good enough, and it looks like Sebastian's pushing on. It didn't look very steep there. It looked pretty flat.
It's pretty flat on the top. I'll hand you back to Alex in a moment, but just for you folks who are watching, and we see a lot of people are watching this race today, we'll be racing every day. The start will normally be open here at 3 o'clock. At 7 o'clock Central European time. We were delayed today because there's a church just next to the airfield, and so we didn't start flying until the church service was finished, which I think is a very normal thing to do.
Very respectful.
And so we're just a few minutes late, but from now on for the rest of this week, the weather's looking good. We're looking good. Everybody's ready to go. The pilots are having a great time. So please join us every day at 7 o'clock European time. And for you guys in America, well, it depends which time zone you're in, but it's the middle of your working afternoon. So you'll have to sneak it on when the boss is not looking. Huh? I'll hand you back to Alex because he knows more about where we are than I do.
So the leader's now just 7 kilometres to run to the first turn point. Not quite sure why it says TP3 in the top, but we'll get there. TP1 is where we're going to, at the top of the screen in the middle, with Sebastian Nagel and Sebastian Carver out in front with 6.5 and 6.7 kilometres to run respectively.
We just get very interesting input from the weather over there in the valley of Los Andes. We just got said that the cloud base is around 3,200 meters, so that will give us a good explanation why nobody actually is flying higher than that. Everybody was reaching 3,100, 3,200 is the highest we saw. So the ridge that Andrés Errázuriz was trying to follow to fly directly into turn point 1, he might have followed that ridge because it was just out of the clouds, and he just advanced a little bit to see if the pass was clear, and it looks like the pass was not clear, and he had actually to turn left to the westerly ridges where everybody else was flying along. So this gives us a good explanation why nobody actually flies higher than what we have seen now, and everybody's actually flying along the cloud base towards turn point 1. Mario Kisling is there in the back. He got tangled in there and he's struggling a little bit with altitude. René Vidal was flying pretty low at this little lagoon that we can see on the lower left part of the screen, Laguna Copin. It is a flat place. Just Brian mentioned it looks flat. It's pretty scary flat. When you have to make turns there in thermals, you're just very close to the ground, and you feel like you don't have a lot of escape routes if you don't find the lift. And it keeps like that all the way further north to the east before you jump into the valley and you approach turn point 1. So we have a clear input of the weather. There is cloud base, and cloud base is restricting the altitude, and that obviously is a factor that these pilots have to take in account right now.
Yes, just a couple of questions we've had about average speeds. Whilst we can't display it on the right hand side, we can see the average speed of each competitor when we have their label on the bottom. So in the screen you can see at the moment Sebastian Carver, his average speed is 103.8 kilometers an hour so far for the race, and that's not too different from Sebastian Nagel here on the right hand side. What we're working towards is, hopefully for the next Grand Prix final, is real-time scoring. As we improve the data and improve the tracking, we hope to be able to do that. You can just see as they're very low on the hills here. The signal just drops out every now and then, but much better than we've seen in the past. Not very far to run now. Perhaps Benji can give us a distance to the turn point. 2.2 kilometers to run for René. We're just down in the valley there, so we're just losing a little bit of data, but we'll see them go through the turn point. These are half-kilometer barrels, So it's a GPS position, and we will know if they go into the barrel from their GPS position, and then that should tick over on the scoring system to show that they've gone around that turn point, and then it will give us the distance to the next one.
And as you can see, the black line now that comes out of turn point 1 towards turn point 2, it is a 90-degree, well, obviously for these guys, 180-degree turn backwards where they were coming from. So I'm making a little bit of using imagination. I think they will be flying along the clouds now, cloud base. It even might be possible that they have actually some lift underneath these clouds while they're flying along straight towards the turn point. I wouldn't guess that anybody would stop and turn in the middle of the valley here. You fly just into the open valley. There is no lift being generated unless you're low. Then you will be close to these ridges and you will have to actually climb out of there. But it looks like everybody from Copin flew straight into the turn point, and it's going to be interesting now to, when they come back out, if they're going to fly back exactly to the same place where they were climbing a while ago.
We thought there would be 2 routes into this turn point, and it looked like Andres was going to try the right-hand route, but couldn't do so, and everybody's gone round to the left. So they're now going into the turn point, and looks like Didier and Giorgio Galetto very close to it now. They'll come back out of the turn point, back towards the other group, but a little lower.
Right. The turn point 1 is called Rio Hidalgo. Is actually the name of a river that flows into the Rio Putaendo, the major. It's a contributor to that little bit bigger river, and the altitude of the ground there of this turn point is around roughly 1,900 meters, almost 2,000 meters. So you could actually make a calculation how high they're flying above the ground. We saw a few of them 3,300 meters flying into the turn point, so they're roughly 1,000 meters above the ground flying right now. But they will be losing altitude, and then they will be flying out. Didier actually pressed north towards the ridge that is north of the turn point instead of flying just straight out 180 degrees backwards to find some lift in front of there. That might be quite wise if it is clear of clouds and indicators of good lift there. That gives you good chance to approach that turn point 2 a little bit with more space and room. Turn point 2 is just fairly 27 kilometers away from turn point 1 in a direction, westerly direction, 260 degrees, so it's really west, and but it's out there in the valley without a lot of generators of lift unless you're low. So it's going to be interesting. I think we will see gliders spending quite some time flying out to the west and flying back east, because they will be losing altitude flying out west, and they will have to regain the altitude flying back east because they will have to approach turn point 3. That is quite close to turn point 1 in terms of the location. It's up there in the river of Putaendo. So it's going to be very interesting. This is tough flying. It's warm there. You're flying close to the ground. You don't see the escape routes. In this view, you can see you're just enclosed in valley. There is no runway down there where you can land in. You just have to believe in your calculations, in the performance of your glider, and the knowledge of the people that have flown there. So it's for somebody that hasn't been in there, it's quite uncomfortable.
They are now getting back to the ridge they climbed on before they left to go to turn point 1. So hopefully we'll see them climb there. Didier, who went further north, did manage to get a little bit of altitude. He was up to 3,500 meters now, and now he's set off after the others who are on the left-hand side of the valley as we look at it at the moment. Thilo looks like he's gone round the turn point and is heading low down through the valley. Just a little bit further to the left are the two Sebastians with a little bit more height, between 3,100 and 3,160 and 3,170 respectively. They're just coming onto the area where they should be able to start getting a little bit more lift. In fact, you can see them just starting to work that ridge there. Sebastian Carver turning left, Sebastian Nagel following him.
Here we have to, well, you can actually see it quite clearly. Gliders that actually already marked turn point 1, and some of them they're flying towards turn point 1. Sebastian is, both Sebastians are actually higher coming back from the turn point than the ones that are flying towards the turn point. That's a good feeling when you're
yes, I'm not
coming back from the turn point and you're higher.
Not too sure it's good for Mark Tingey and John Gatfield going back in the other
no.
way.
Now Thilo is doing this a little bit different than everybody else. He's flying on the northern side of the Putaendo River. That is a place where you could normally find good lift, but you will be flying low. He decided to do this low. He knows the area well. He actually mentioned to me that in case, before the takeoff, in case that he flies out of that valley, if that are the ridges where we used to fly a few years ago and find lift from the very bottom out of the valley up into the to colder air, and that's what he's actually doing.
It's interesting. We were just having a quick look at Thomas Gostner, who has a bit of a reputation for being very pushy, but today he seems to be hanging back a little and keeping a little bit of extra height. We saw him up at 3,500 meters as he goes through turn point 1 there.
Absolutely. Now, if you see the rum line that he had flying into turn point 1, it's a totally different way to get in there, but he's definitely higher than everybody else. We saw him already at the beginning flying a little bit higher than everybody else. That's good. That gives you confidence to press a little bit faster. You have to remember the next turn points after turn point 3, it's pretty fast run further south. They don't have to fly further south than Santiago itself. So once you have altitude after turn point 3, you start to really press hard. So if you have these 600 meters more than the rest of it, you could really gain some speed.
Meanwhile, the leading group of the two Sebastians has been a split, and Sebastian Nagel has stopped to climb, but Sebastian Carver has pushed on.
Yeah, actually what Sebastian Carver is doing there, it's quite logic, because the turn point is out there in the valley, and it doesn't make sense at all to fly higher out there in the valley. You actually want to fly in the air that has lift and the air mass that is still influenced by the ridges there of the valley. So you just want to make sure you're flying in the area that has more energy in, not in the clean air above it.
But it's interesting you say that, because I would have thought that these guys who don't know the area so well would be much more concerned about what height they're going to get back to the mountain when they've taken the turning point, and that they would want to be as high as they can when they leave, to be as high as they can when they come back.
Yeah, definitely that's a way to take it. But if you actually find a area in the air mass, a vertical area, a band of air that has energy in, you actually can fly faster in that band of energy without turning than flying in clean air, even if you're 1,000 meters higher. You will be faster down there in the band with the energy than flying high, and you spend a lot of time climbing high and doing all the route into the turn points. So I would say this is they understood very well what the air is doing there. The only thing important here is that if you are flying out of that band of energy into lower air masses, that let's say below that band of energy, that you can find your climb back up. It might be that you still have some inversions down there in the valley. It might feel very hot, but there is a thermal inversion and there is no wind today, there is no strong wind. That might create some problems and issues to connect again with a band of energy that is above you. But it looks like these guys are, I'm not really sure right now what is the speed of flying. Sebastian is doing 109 kilometers.
Yeah, that's the average.
That's the average, yeah.
The current speed, 140, 150 kilometers an hour.
So they're being conservative. They're doing definitely using the best performance speed
best
right
climb,
now for the glider, best climb speed now for the glider, because they might have actually some energy. But back to Brian's comment right now of approaching this with altitude. We just mentioned a while ago that we would see gliders spending more time getting altitude and to approach this flight out into the valley doing this, but it looks like everybody decided to stay in this influence of the ridges and doing the approach to the task a little bit faster than what we would done here from the press room.
Yeah. So just a couple of kilometers to go now before 10.2, and that will make them, I'm just doing my sums in my head, about 110 kilometers done out of the 266. And from this turn point they come back into the mountains. We've had one question about are there any land out options in this area? Any airfields here?
Yeah, there is further south from here. There is a little town called San Felipe. And San Felipe has a 700-meter gravel runway that is about 10 clicks, 15 clicks away from where they are. And another 20 clicks further south is Los Andes. That's a paved runway. So with this altitude, they don't have any trouble to have landable areas. There are some other spots where you could land down there, but you risk doing some damage on your glider. So, but you have gliding distance towards these two fields.
So first through 10.2 is Sebastian Carvas, followed by local here, Andres. He's flown well, hasn't he?
Yes.
It's fantastic. Andres, it was a last-minute wild card from Chile. The Chile people are cheering Andres because nobody expected him to be the first guy behind Carver through the turn point. If he can keep that up, he's going to be a local hero tonight.
Absolutely, absolutely. We just commented. Andres feels very proud of his kind of flying. He explores the air very well, but being successful now as a wild card in the Grand Prix definitely will cheer him up a lot. Definitely.
So just a recap, if you're watching us through the website, if you click to the YouTube channel, you can add your comments. On the right hand side there's a live chat stream, and we're watching that live with you. So if you have any questions you want to ask us, we'll do our best to answer them. We just got one here asking us whether there's an altitude limit. You don't have a lot of airspace in Chile.
No. That's one of the great things here, and everybody that visits us comes to Chile to fly. Easier.
Easy for you to say.
Is surprised about the little restrictions we have. Airspaces are basically out there in the valley. It is the approach area for the main international airport. There is some Victor ways and instrumental routes above us that cross from Argentina that we have to take care. But we have been very quiet with our sport in Chile, and as we don't make a lot of noise and we don't disturb people, we haven't been imposed with a lot of restrictions. So no, there is no height restriction here. on some areas we just have to watch out with the airliners crossing from Argentina to Chile. That's basically a little bit further south from here, the valley of Los Andes. But here you will not find an aircraft or an airspace that restricts you at all. And we are not imposed with flying with transponders. So they might see us on the primary radar just as a spot, and they might sometimes advise the airliners that there's presence of gliders, but we're not imposed with transponder modes.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, 142 kilometres for Sebastian Cava to go. He's out in front as they come back to 10.3 in the middle of the screen at the top. They're coming back down the valley. They've got a choice of coming on the right-hand side or the left-hand side. The valley looks like they've come to the right-hand side, the route that they went out on.
That's right, because you will connect faster to the ridges that generate lift there. It might be that in this area they have influence of the northerly wind, and if you can see Sebastian, he's actually above that ridge. He'll fly into that flat zone. He will make use of the energy that just comes out of the valley, and then he will cross further north. So Andres knows the place very well. Actually, he decided not to fly east and to these flat areas, but cross the valley all the way to the other side and gain altitude on a place that we called Resguardo Los Patos. That's that little Y created by the two rivers flowing together. He's following Sebastian Cava. He always gives me something when I'm saying his...
The same for me as well.
Yeah,
Yes, the
yeah.
V's and W's. We have to get those right.
It's Sebastian Cava. So he's following him. He's doing a great job. Andres is doing a really great job.
So Sebastian crossing to the north side of the valley now, followed by Andres. The remaining group behind, Didier and Roman Mercek and Thomas Gostner and Thilo, staying on the southern side. Just see Werner Arman there. Just see if we can see his altitude. Where are we? Yeah, no, they've just got a speed of 140 kilometres an hour. We'll see. Altitude 3,148 metres. Thank you, Benji.
So I was just going to ask Alex, Sean. Alex, do you think that there's a critical point coming up with the next turning point as to what they do as they take the turn and where they climb next?
I was thinking about Sebastian is approaching the place we called Resguardo Los Patos. Los Patos is that confluence of the two little rivers there, and he will try to work himself above that ridge, and then he'll go into turn point. If you look, the line that flies out of the turn point 3 directly south, that basically takes you above that pass again that we were talking a while ago. I wouldn't say that anybody would actually try to get the altitude to cross the pass. They will do the same route back to the south they used flying north. So this turn point takes them away from the fast way back home. They will have to climb above the ridge though, where they're approaching now. Sebastian Cava and Andres Errázuriz, they have to be above the ridge to fly into turn point 3.
I think I just saw Andres stop and try a climb there.
Yeah, that's what I would. And I guess everybody else that is still on the southern side of the river will try to get that altitude to set himself above the ridge they have on the northern side of the river. I would say that's the only, a little bit challenge they have now. Once they mark turn point 3, they would basically have a pretty fast race back to the south. Turn point 4 is in the Aconcagua Valley, place called Central. It's a power station, and but that really doesn't take you off the way. You just turn in fast and you go along lagunas and you press further south back home. So the only challenge right now is to gain these 300, 400, let's say, 500 meters Sebastian needs to complete basically the task for today. So Sebastian and Andres Errázuriz, in terms of kilometers, I think they are the leaders right now. And in terms of altitude, they actually are doing not as good as I expected on Andres. Andres is a little bit low, Andres Errázuriz.
On the southern side here,
Yeah.
Whiskey Mike, Sebastian Nagel at 3,300 meters versus Andres at 2,300 meters.
That's right. That's right. It's interesting that Sebastian actually flew back into that flatter area, and he might have had some good lift before he flew out into the valley, and he decided to fly back into that lift. Lift here in Chile in the Andes, I would say it's quite constant in a certain time frame. If you find a good thermal, you can be quite certain that half an hour later that thermal would be there still. Thermals don't move along here. They're generated on certain points. They're released by the ridges. They are triggers are definitely is the wind, and where they start, you should be able to find them half an hour or 40 minutes later again, unless the weather really changes or clouds move in and block out the sun, or an air mass moves in, but that you could see. So definitely these guys flew back into something they found before they attacked turn point 1.
Yeah, in fact we can see Sebastian Nagel now just under 3,300 meters. He's now sitting off across the valley to turn point 3. Another group behind him climbing up to 3,000 meters, and the group that went left are considerably lower, but working that ridge there. Didier now just under 3,000 meters, Whiskey Golf Werner Arman just over 3,000 meters, and Sebastian Carva is on the left hand side.
Yeah, once you reach the summit of that ridge, you just fly along the ridge. Even the summit climbs little by little as you fly northeast here towards the turn point. It climbs, but once you're above it, you are able to actually fly along that summit, climbing with it. It's very good climb. You're not flying fast, but you're gaining altitude and you're gaining distance towards the turn point. So Victor Golf is a very good example of that. He made it all the way on the top of the summit, and he's pressing along now with the summit climbing in front of him, and he's able to keep his glider above that summit. It's a very, very fun flight when you go north and you're able to do this, and you mark your turn point in the north and you come back, because then you really are racing back, and then you can fly 150, 200 kilometers without a single turn in a thermal, because you're flying above these summits. It's really fun to do.
Great. Well, Alex, thank you very much indeed for that. We'll give you a break, and we have Carlos Roca joined us today. So come and say hello, Carlos.
Hello, everyone.
So a bit unusual to see you on the ground, Carlos. Do you want to talk us through that?
It's almost as interesting as being there, because I've never seen a race from down here. So it's really interesting, because when you are up there, you only see 1 or 2 or 3 gliders that are with you, but from here you can see all the strategies. So it's good.
Yeah, we just lost a little bit of data up in this top corner, but they're very low compared with the scenery there. But once they get round and start heading south, we'll get a better picture.
Yeah.
But the leaders are just going round 10.3 now.
Yes. Well, we had this turn point in our nationals, so I think at least the ones who flew the nationals, they know the routes to get there. And actually, there are 2 routes you can see here. You can go north or south. Half of them are going on the north one, what we call resguardo. And then you jump to the turn point and back. You see the ones who are in the left side here. Yes, that one. There's a good thermal over there. When we flew our nationals, there were, I think, 3 meters. And the other strategy is going from the south to the east, yes, there, and then to the turn point. I think if the thermal is there, or the lift is there on the left ridge, probably it will be faster.
Yeah, we saw Werner Arman use that route, and coming from the south was Sebastian Nagel, and they've joined up together and are now through the turn point. Sebastian Carva, who was also going on the left-hand route, didn't get the climb, and has been struggling and has been caught by Didier, and they're now going through in 3rd and 4th place respectively.
Yeah, well, they actually are not very, very high. If I was there, I wish I was higher than this. But yes, I think they are pushing each other, and 2.8. Yeah, that's not really, really high, but it's safe anyway. You see, they are choosing to climb a little after the turn point. The ones who are heading here to the east, to the left,
Yep.
they are choosing to climb instead of coming back straight to the next turn point, because probably they feel a little low, and they are looking for some more height.
2 choices here. Looks like Didier is going straight, and Sebastian went a little bit further to the east, a little bit closer to the ridge.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, there's normally good lift here. We use it in a lot of routes we make north and south. So they will probably use the ridge, climb a little, and then keep going. Yeah, they're spread all around.
Yeah, it'll sort itself out in a minute. The 2 leaders, looks like Werner and Sebastian Nagel, have got a little bit further down this easterly face, the ridge, and then now coming south past what was turn point 1. As they cross that valley, where will they be going to?
Well, there are a couple of alternatives here. Can you face south?
I'll just change the view for you.
Yeah, that's it. You see, if you're able to climb there near turn point 1, then you can go straight. You see, probably some of them are trying. We cannot see the clouds here, but if there are some clouds and thermals there, you can go straight. If not, if you cannot climb, you have to go all the way back towards turn point 2 and take the ridges. Yes, that way, and
go
take
back
the
out to
ridges.
the west.
Yes, absolutely,
Right, okay.
absolutely. But I think there might be some clouds that we are not seeing, because they are trying to get the straight route to 10.3. I mean, yes, 10.4.
Yeah, Werner Arman's at 3,300 meters. Is that enough, or does he need more?
Yes, yeah, almost. And once they get the altitude here, they will probably be in final glide, because all the rest of the turn points, they are very easy. Just go there and then back to Vitacura. The only thing is there's this Puente Mapocho turn point. Then you have to be a little. You have to fly a little slower than usual, because you have to go to this east turn point before 3K. But it looks like they will make the pass there, and if not, they can still go right to the west. And
Yeah, Sebastian Nagel now is just under 3,500 meters, so he should have enough altitude to get across the pass.
yeah, for sure to make it on the west and fast. But maybe even if they climb here, they can go straight to the turn point number 4. Yes.
And they have a bailout option. They can go to Lagunas.
Yeah,
near
they will
the 10.4.
go through Lagunas anyway.
Yeah.
Because the way back is through Lagunas. The thing is, if they go on the west route, probably they will be low, and they will have to climb in lagunas. If they're able to go straight to the turn point, they will be able to make it in just final glide to, this is 10.5, let me see.
10.4. Yeah, it's a little confusing, the label, but we're going to sort that out for tomorrow.
Yes, but 10.5 is, yeah. In any case, they have to go west to 10.5, so that means going on the low route.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So they will be taken to the west and then to the east. So a little bit slower, but pretty sure they are almost on the last thermal they would take today.
Just looking back a little further down the track, Mario Kisling's not having a great day in India. No, he's got decent altitude, 2,800 meters, but he's a long way back, and so's Lucas. Lucas didn't manage to make the start. He was very low.
Did he?
No, he couldn't climb away.
Okay.
And then he managed to catch up the group, and then he got left behind again.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah, well, you see all the gliders spread. The thing of the task that Alfonso made, he always make more than one route to get to the turn point. So here you can see from 10.1, from 1 to 2 you can choose two routes.
Two routes
from
out to
2
the valley.
to 3 you can choose two routes on the south or the north. And from 3 to 10.4, again, you can choose two routes. Try to climb and go straight, or use the ridges and go on the right side, on the right-hand side, just using the ridges a little lower. And, well, there you have René.
Yeah, René's just coming through
Yeah.
10.3, so that puts him in about 4th or 5th place at the moment.
Uh-huh. Go, René, go. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we will start to see all the gliders very, very soon, because there is a low coverage, I think, in this area. But once they get to the ridge, we will see all of them.
We'll have much better coverage on the
Yeah.
way back. Yeah. Yeah. So just
What's going to happen to anybody here who doesn't get the altitude to go straight over?
They will have to turn west. That in this view, they will have to turn right and take the ridges you have on the right. But what is doing this glider here? Who is?
that's
Whiskey Mike.
Sebastian Nagel.
Yeah, I think if he is the first one making this pass, he will be the first one to arrive. Because from now on, there's another one to the
Yeah, that's
to the
Werner
left.
Hamann
Yeah.
from Austria. Werner's
You
average
see,
is 100 kilometers an hour
you see,
so far.
Here is what I told you. To go to turn point number 4, you could choose two routes. And you will see now that there are two groups, one going on the east side and one going on the west side. You see? So for me, if I had the altitude, I would have taken the east side, because you will have reach a little bit more to the till the turn point. So the ones who are coming from the west side, they will lose the reach before the other group. So I think if you see now the reaches, you will see that the group on the left, they will have reaches almost to the turn point. And I think from there, with the altitude they have here, they will be able to come to they will be on final glide to the club. All the turn points probably.
Okay,
Yeah, all the remaining turn points.
it's good. So we just need
It's
to...
very, very interesting. Yeah, we need a little bit, wait a little, so all the gliders appear and we will see how they are doing.
So what's Didier doing? He's been through 10.3, but we think he's been through 10.3, but he's actually come back southwest. That's
Sorry,
very
where is
strange.
Yeah,
He's in the middle here,
yeah,
Didier.
I think he was a little too low to make the high pass on the east. So the problem here is, you see the gliders on the right of the screen, they are, there's a flat area there, and so they have to turn They're almost flying 90 degrees to
the track. Yes.
yeah. So that's a problem of this area where Cobin is. On this side, what we call Animitas Ridge. You see, they are flying more straight. They will take the ridge on the side, yes, on the left, and this ridge will end towards the next turn point.
Okay.
So from here,
A straight run.
maybe a little low. They should be probably at ridge altitude or something like that. But I think they will have enough energy to make it back from there.
Okay, just to recap, out in front is Werner Arman, followed by Sebastian Nagel. They're now heading south between turn point 3 and turn point 4, and they've got about another 20 kilometers or so to go to the next turn point, and we're expecting them to stay on this ridge.
Yeah, actually what I see is that Werner, he chose to go straight, probably thinking that he has enough altitude that, no, it's not Werner, it's Whiskey Mike. That I'm not
Sebastian
really, Sebastian, I'm not really sure, because he has two turn points that are not that easy. The first one is more to the valley, and then you have to keep your altitude to get to the next turn point in Mapocho River.
Mhm.
So if I was there, I will choose to keep a little bit more height, just to be sure that you can make the turn points without having to climb again.
Yeah, we're just looking at the goal arrival height on the left-hand side of the screen. This is a sort of ready calculator that we've got that works out their current altitude, distance to go, and whether they'll make it or not. And it has Bostian at the top of the list, who's we think the data's a little bit wrong on that one. Doesn't look right. But Werner Arman looks like he's, as Mike Young says on the live chat, he says he's got it in the bag. It's still quite a long way to go, but
Yeah,
it's the right side anyway. It's 270 meters the
yeah,
right side.
What we will see now is we will see appearing the gliders who took the west route.
Yes.
If you zoom out a little, they will start coming from the right side.
Yeah, we're just getting that view organised
But
for you.
for sure they will be lower unless they stop to climb somewhere.
Two of them running together. Yes, there we go. That's great.
Yeah, well,
So-
no, I think Sebastian and Giorgio, they took the same route. We will
Yes.
see the gliders coming on the west route appearing on the
On the right-hand
right,
side of the screen. Yeah.
on the right corner. There they are.
Oh, there we
You
go,
see?
yes.
There
Yeah.
they are. But they are, you see, they are a lot lower.
Yeah. So left was
So,
best.
Yeah. That's what we call the high route and the fast route.
Doesn't
It's-
so fast today, though.
It's-
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
it will be faster than the ones who are on the west side.
Yeah, the average speed is going up there, and there's 133.
Yeah, and it will go
kilometers an
up
hour.
from now on because they are almost, I think, at final guide already. I don't think they will have to climb much more. One thermal.
Yeah, just looking
Probably-
at the ground speed, Werner Arman's flying at 240
Yeah.
kph.
Yeah. So yeah, the ones who could make the east route, I think they will. That group will be the fastest.
So just recapping about this race, it was pretty neck and neck all the way to
Yeah,
the north.
But
And then the
thing
decision
is,
going west.
maybe today, stopping for 200 or 300 more meters before reaching 10.4 was the key to make it straight, faster, and higher. And the ones who just kept going, they had to take the west route, and they were pushed a lot to the west, slower and lower.
And had to fly further
Yeah,
as well.
of course, yes, longer distance.
Yes. But coming back from 10.2, it looks like Sebastian Nagel and Werner got a climb on the southern side of the valley.
Yeah, maybe that
Um,
was the
Must have just found a really good climb and that gave them the 300 or 400 meters that they needed to get round 10.3 first, and that's put them in this position now.
Yeah, that's it. So, where is Alpha Tango now? It's not that I'm Chilean, but
yeah. So just watching these guys go through 10.4.
oh, so yeah, he chose the west route.
Yeah.
Yes.
He is toast.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I think there will be quite a difference between the group on the east and on the west. And where's Golf November?
We'll just check for you.
Yeah, because actually, the pilot who discovered this route is Andres Errázuriz is in Golf November. He's flying Golf November, so we owe this route to him. I mean, the east route on Animita.
He's still stuck in this valley. This route back from 10.2 up this valley has proved very, very difficult.
Yeah.
You had to get it right.
Yes.
I think we're heading for a pretty exciting finish with two pairs pushing each other all the way back. It should give us really good finish.
Yeah, we will see if they have enough altitude to make it straight to the finish line without climbing anymore. I think they will. They are arriving to the Lagunas area.
So by running along the ridges, you don't think they're going to stop and climb? They should be able to pick up enough energy.
Yes, and actually what we will see here, if there is some wind, you will see that once they take the ridges, they will gain from 100 to 200 meters.
As they're running along the spine now already,
Yes.
they're climbing 1.5, 2 meters.
Yeah, the good thing of this ridge is it doesn't matter where the wind comes from. You will have ridge all the way. You will have ridge, lift, I mean. And this, wow, this is interesting.
You say it's interesting. Why?
Yeah, they are not taking the ridge.
They've come off the ridge.
Yes.
They're going to go straight
They're
across
going to
this.
go straight. Well, we cannot see the clouds. Maybe there are good clouds, good cumulus there, yeah, that we cannot see.
Yeah, well, they're traveling 160 kilometers an hour, just slowing up a little now, just coming into the lift.
Yeah, this is what we call lagunas. It's a very good climbing area. There are a lot of thermals, strong thermals. So, yeah, maybe they are saying the cumulus there and aiming for the thermal instead of the ridge.
So the two of them are locked together here. Is there anything one or the other can do to do a different route at all, or are they going to be together to the finish now, do you think?
No, I think they want to be together to the finish, and I think I'm looking that it's Termas de Colina, the next turn point. So they already have the altitude. We won't see any more climbing, any more thermaling. They are high enough. Maybe, yeah. No, they are high enough. So yes, they are in final glide now.
For us, in the background, watching this, the really exciting moment now is, will they push each other too hard? They know the other two guys are behind. They're not going to want to turn. They're going to want to try and find a shortcut. But because our scoring system is so brutal, there's 2 points to be had by being the first back. And they both want those 2 points.
Yeah, it will be interesting, for sure. And you can see now they will go straight to what we call, if you aim a little bit to the right, yeah, that, yes, you see? This is Lagunas area here. They are going straight.
They're 2,700 meters now from here.
Yeah, that's more than enough. That's more than enough. So they will keep going straight. Actually, they will cross the valley with very high altitude. So I think we will have high speeds till the end of the race from here.
That's good. We were planning this earlier, and we thought they would need to be 2,700 meters at Lagunas, and that's exactly what they are.
Actually, you can make it. You can make it with 300 meters less. If you have instead of 2.7, you have 2.4. You can still make it, because they will arrive now to the left almost to the ridges we are seeing towards the turn point. And we normally, when we are coming north to the club, more or less what they are doing now, we will be going like 30 degrees right to the lowest part of that ridge you see there. Because the pass is like 30 degrees to the right.
Yeah, not very much separating them now. 800 meters.
Yeah, and now we will see what gliders are those.
Werner Armand's flying an ASG 29, and Sebastian is flying a new Ventus.
Yes, so it will be interesting.
So it's looking like Germany versus Austria and Poland versus Italy at the moment.
Yes.
Yes, in the group behind, Sebastian looks like he might just have the edge over Giorgio. Yeah, just bringing you that picture now. And do we have the distance on there as well, Benji? Can we have the distance? Distance between Sebastian and Giorgio.
Yeah,
it's around 800 meters, I thought.
They just make lagunas with 2.9. Well, they're pretty high. They're pretty high.
They're high and close.
Yeah. So again, we have here JS1 and Ventus 3.
And Ventus 3. We'll see which one of those will go quickest.
Well, actually, Sebastian, he flew the nationals with us. So he's trained in this kind of final glide towards the club. So I think he might have a little advantage here. And actually they're pretty high. So high enough to go to Termas de Colina and then to this turn point Mapocho. That's not the normal arrival. You have there to go a little bit to the west and then to 3K. But they are pretty high now. So if you see the ground speed, they're already starting to push. Yes.
Yeah. Perhaps we can just take a little bit of a look further back to see who's in the 5th and 6th places. See how they're spreading out. It's changing the view.
Well, we were just asked here that we should call Sebastian Nagel by his nickname Krümel. So it's your turn to
Krümel, which I think is crouton, because he's quite small, so diminutive, shall we say?
So here's another interesting group. Gintas, Thomas, and Didier. They are all experienced pilots here in the Andes. They have been here, well, I think Thomas has been here for 4 to 5 times.
Yeah.
Gintas was here already. Didier also. So they know this route. They know how to get here back, here fast. They are 2.6. Yes, they are. The right altitude enough to get here. Probably not as fast as the first 2 groups. But interesting again, it will be, it's 29, Ventus 3, and Ventus 2.
Right, just looking back at the 2 leading groups. Sebastian now coming back to the east, with Giorgio following, and out in front it looks like they're 4 or 5 kilometers in front is Sebastian Nagel and Werner Armand, locked together just a few hundred meters apart. Very close now, 300 meters.
Yeah, there won't be any changes from here because this is only pushing, between the groups.
Yeah.
Inside each group probably, you can see there could be some. It will be interesting to see.
It looks like Sebastian's got a fraction more altitude. He's probably just waiting for the moment to push ahead.
Yes.
He's closing right up now.
Well, this is all ridge flying. If you feel there is a strong wind at the ridge, you take the ridge. If you feel there's not enough, going straight is faster. And here, what we will see here, once they get to Eagle Rock, it will be interesting. Because from Eagle Rock, there is one jump you can take or avoid. If you take the left route, it will be using the ridge. But if you keep going straight, it's less distance, but without the ridge. So that will be interesting to see. I mean, I think for all the groups that are coming together, there's the last choice probably to make if go to the turn point, to the last turn point, using the ridge or going straight, depending on how high they are.
So this is interesting. They've had to come off the ridge now to get to the turn point.
Yeah, or you can keep the ridge, but it will be a longer distance.
Yeah.
So strategy here again.
So if you were where Werner is, behind by 140 meters and just a little bit lower, is there anything you can do to catch Sebastian now?
Well, as this is Grand Prix, you can risk. Because you can take a chance, because if he knows the next group is far behind, he can try to make something different, and if it doesn't work, he won't lose his actual place, you see? So he can risk to make a different route, thinking that it will be faster, and can you point to the south?
We're just going to change the view to look to the south.
Yeah. Are they going to Eagle Rock, right?
They've got to go to the turning point of the...
Yeah, we're just there's the turn point in the middle of the screen.
Yes, they're aiming to Eagle Rock. The rock you see on the FI logo there, that's Eagle Rock, yes. So here is what I told you. You can go straight to 10.6, I think. To Puente Mapocho, you can go straight or take the ridge on the left. But if you take the ridge, you will arrive higher, but covering a longer distance.
Mm-hmm.
So, and actually, they are so high, they are not aiming to Eagle Rock. They are aiming straight to the turn point. I think they will go straight to the turn point.
Yeah. Speed now 220 kilometers an hour. The average speed is climbing down now up to 137, where earlier going north it was 100 or just under.
Yeah. Well, they already saw its final glide. Probably they can see it in the computer they have on the glider. They are probably looking now at the arrival altitude for the task. So depending on that altitude, they are slowing down or accelerating. Just to make it the minimum altitude needed in the arrival.
Yeah, I'm just looking back into third and fourth place. Sebastian Carvaj's just pulled out a little bit more of a lead over Giorgio Galetto in fourth place, and just coming off the ridge now and heading towards 10.5. Meanwhile, back at the front, Sebastian Nagel just pulling out a little bit more of a lead now, 300 meters.
Yeah, so this is where what you are seeing is they are above Eagle Rock now, and what I said is they can go straight or they can take the ridge to the left. I think with the altitude they have, they can go straight. They need, in the next turn point, 1400. With 1400, you can make it back to the club with high speed. So here we will see if who takes more to the left using the ridge and who goes straight. I think both of them will go straight with this altitude. They need to lose 7 plus. Yeah, I still fly at Q&E. So.
Do you really?
Yes. I never switched to. Yes.
Next, you'll be telling us that you fly track up as well.
No.
We're always subtracting 600 meters or 700 meters.
You
of
too?
our field. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we flew Q&E with 0 at the takeoff for 20 years or 15 years.
What
Yeah.
we call QNH.
Yeah, now we are flying QNH. Well, the altitude,
QFE.
QFE, sorry.
Yeah.
The altitudes you see there, QNH. So I have to make I have to add.
You have to add the numbers.
Yes, I have to add 700 meters to my altitudes to. So say they need, and at the next turn point, 1,400 meters QNH.
The minimum altitude is 850 meters, don't forget.
Yeah.
For a finish.
Yeah, but then if you make the turn point at Mapocho with my 700, meaning 1,400 QNH,
Yes.
then it's like 200 indicated airspeed to
Yeah.
3K.
All the way home. Okay.
And I don't think we will see any change here. Victor Mike's taking the lead, higher and faster. Yeah, the distance is increasing.
Sebastian's in a happy place.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Sebastian, he's a very skilled pilot. He came here to fly with us first time and he won. He beat us, and he almost won the final in Germany.
Yes.
After,
Yeah,
yes.
the Wasserkuppe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if Sebastian wins in his Ventus 3, there'll be 2 very happy people here tonight.
Yes.
Thilo Hollinghouse will be buying the champagne.
Yeah, you see the distance is increasing. He is at the front place and higher. So, yeah, there won't be any change here.
I see we've started a bit of a debate on the chat line about north up or track up or.
Yeah, so as I said, they are 1,500 now. They will arrive something like 1,400 to the turn point.
That's plenty.
Yeah, this will be more interesting, I think. A little lower.
And the group behind this were even lower, another 200 meters lower.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we will see some decision making in the third group. This group is high enough also, and the Sebastian in the front, he's higher, and I don't think we will see any change. But here,
Gentis Zub and Didier House, very close together, but Didier is a little higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks
And
like Didier's got that one.
yeah.
Not quite sure what happened to Rene.
So it's interesting how they got separated after. I mean, on the fourth turn point, 1, 2, 3, on the third turn point.
Yes, yeah, that
they
valley.
got a lot separated.
And we had a question actually at the briefing, why do we have so many turn points? And our answer was, go fly it and talk to us afterwards. But we can see now that the reason for doing this was to make it really interesting. That leg that took them to the west to turn point 2.
I think you will see this kind of tasks very interesting, and where you have to make choices. There's not always a direct route, because we have been flying with this kind of task made by Alfonso for several years now, and we know he makes the task and he chooses the turn points, so you have to make decisions. It's not just go and fly the obvious route. You have to make decisions, and that's what we are seeing now.
That's fantastic. So just to recap of where we are, out in front is Sebastian Nagel in the new Ventus 3, and in second place is Werner Arman in Whiskey Golf, which is a ASG 29. And in third place, we believe, is Sebastian Carva in a JS1. And fourth, just behind him, is Giorgio Galetto in another Ventus 3.
So now you see they made a turn point, their final glide, high speed.
And what we could just see there, if we can just go back to that view again, Benji, as they go towards the finish line. We're looking west now. The red cylinder is the checkpoint. There's a hill actually. It's just behind our hotel near the motorway. That's the checkpoint, and from there it's 3 kilometers to the finish line. The green finish line in the distance. So that's all they've got. They can see it. They can taste it.
Yeah,
from
of
there.
course. And if you see when this small hill, probably a mountain for many, you see to the right, it's called Alvarado. When we are too low coming from the turn point, the last turn point, we use this mountain or hill here to get some lift to get the altitude for the finish line. But they were coming so high that they don't need it. They go straight, high speed.
Just pulling up a little there.
Yeah, just a reminder that the reason for this very last turn point, it might be awkward for some of the guys that look at this race. Why is there a turn point a few clicks before the finish line? It's actually to align all the gliders in the into the final of the runway, so everybody actually flies through the finish line from east to west. In this case, we had a turn point that was further east, so this last turn point is actually not
really
usable
needed, but,
today.
yeah.
But if we fly in from the south or the north, we want all the gliders, have them aligned with the runway, flying east to west because of a safety reason and the rest of the traffic that might be flying around the airport here. So that is the only reason why this 3K turn point exists. Exactly, 3K before the finish line.
And Sebastian's through, and just at the right altitude.
We have a
as well.
winner. And 880 something.
Yeah, just
So,
over.
yeah. Yeah.
850 meters.
Oh, and here.
And in second place, Werner Arman. He'll be happy.
Yeah, but I think he went a little bit low. Yeah, but he's so far in front of the next group that even with penalties, I don't think he will.
And
He will lose the second place.
just rounding the penultimate turn is Sebastian Cava, 850 meters ahead of Giorgio Galetto from Italy. Sebastian in a JS1 and Giorgio in a Ventus 3.
Yeah, they are coming probably a little low, but I think not much. And they are flying. Yeah, they are flying high speed anyway.
Yeah, Sebastian flying 240 kph.
Yeah.
8 kilometers to run. Now, what will be interesting is to find out what's happened to the chasing group. We had a group of 3 or 4, 5th, 6th and 7th. We're just checking on where they've got to.
I'm impressed about this technology. You can show the distance between the gliders. I've never seen it because I was always up there.
Here we go. We've got the next group, Didier, followed by Bostian, and then Thomas Gostner, and Alfa Romeo, who is, I should know that one, is Gentis Zoop. Yeah, so where's our local hero? Where's
Yeah,
René
well,
got
actually, wait.
Yeah.
If you see the screen, you will see that the last glider in the bottom is Sulu. His tracking,
Thomas Reck.
his tracker
he's
is not
working.
working.
That's right.
So we don't
know where he is. Yeah,
Maybe he won.
Could have won already. Yes.
Yeah, so maybe he won, and we have a Chilean pilot as a winner.
And Tom Kelly, we understand, came back earlier. So
Yes.
he's safely back on the ground. So Sebastian Cava now in third place through the checkpoint, followed by Giorgio Galetto. Sebastian now will just be making sure he maintains his altitude as he comes into the finish line, just making sure he's at the 850 meter mark. He was not going to want to get any penalties now.
Yeah, and not with another glider too close behind.
Yeah.
So 850, look at this.
Yeah.
854.
It's just pulling up a little. And then through the line. Well done, Sebastian. So third for Sebastian Carver.
So we still have 5 points to look at it.
And do you think he'll be happy?
Well, this is Grand Prix gliding.
Yeah.
You can come third or fourth. Even I've seen winners of the championship that didn't make any points in some tests.
Yeah.
So
Points on the board, though.
yes.
Points on the board.
And here comes
Didier
Didier
in 5th place.
and Thomas.
And it looks very close, actually, between Bostian and Thomas. Didier flying a Ventus 2, Bostian flying a JS1, and Thomas flying Ventus 3.
Yes. Look at this.
Now, they're pretty close.
This will be very interesting here. Something.
We know Thomas won't like to be the second of these two, will he?
And it's pretty close with Thomas here and Bostian. Just 200 meters separating them. Thomas pushing a bit harder now, 230 kph.
Yeah, and they are at 1300, 1374. They just the altitude they need. It won't be too fast on the arrival.
Didier round the turn. Thomas just using that last bit of energy off the ridge. And Alfa Romeo following along. Gintis Zub
Gintis.
from Lithuania.
Yes.
He's
Well,
29.
he's been here before. He's getting the last point, I think.
He has his catchphrase. He says, "No problem." Nothing's a problem.
Well, when he was here before, we saw him.
Oh, did you
flying-
see Bostian just missed the turn? He had to go back.
Wow, right.
Yeah.
Was he in front?
No,
No,
it was
he
very
was
close.
At the back,
but,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, now he's at the back, definitely. Yeah, you can play with the delay of the GPS,
Yeah.
trying to turn
Yeah.
a little bit in advance, but you
Yeah.
have to know how much. Maybe he pushed too much.
Yes, amazing. Just having to go back, and he's a kilometre behind.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing of Grand Prix. A little mistake doesn't make any change. If you were coming behind the Golf Tango, then unless you get behind Alfa Romeo, there's you have the same points. And there comes our first Chilean.
René Vidal in Alpha Tango.
No,
we
I
haven't
think
seen him
he
yet.
wa-
We haven't
he
seen him
He
yet.
was at the back.
It's probably worth just talking about the points. So we're talking about how brutal the scoring is in Grand Prix racing, and there's only points for the top 9 finishers.
Yeah.
So you get 10 points for first place and second place. Doesn't matter on the distance or the time. If you're in second place, you get 8 points. So it's a 2-point difference, and that goes right the way down to 9th place.
Yes.
So René is currently in 9th place. So he's looking at
His
just
point.
stepping out of the 0 points club.
Yeah, he won't be. For sure, he won't be at the 0 Point Club here, flying our mountains here. But yes, and then you can imagine that you can win with 150 kph and get 10 points.
Yeah.
And the second can come with 100 kph, and he will still have 8 points. So that's the good of Grand Prix.
And there's Didier just through the
Right.
finish line in fifth place.
Yes.
Sean, there is a question here if there will be talking with the pilots in the next days. Actually, for those that are online, just don't miss it tomorrow. We be transmitting the interview on the grid line before they start, and we will be talking to the pilots there. We were just having a little bit of glitches with the setup of the technology here today, so we got behind the time, and we couldn't transmit that today. So tomorrow, nobody please misses the transmission and listen to the comments of the pilots. It will be even more interesting to hear what they have to say, because they will have one day already in their back of flying here in the Grand Prix in Chile.
Yeah, our plan is to start broadcasting half an hour before the race, and we start at 3 o'clock local time, which is 1800 UTC. So if you join us at 5:30 UTC, you will hear the grid walk, and then we'll start talking to you 15 minutes before the start of the race. So through the line in 6th place was Thomas Gosner, followed by Eko Juliet, which is Bostian from Slovenia, and just coming across the line now is Gentis from Lithuania in Alfa Romeo, just trying to keep his altitude 860 meters he needs, 850 sorry, just above the finish height, and through the line for 2 points. And looking further back down the track, second to last turn point, René Vidal, 1400 meters, plenty of altitude to get home. Comfortable. He probably doesn't know how many are in front. He doesn't know whether or not he's got any points or not.
Yeah, because he took the west route from Type 3, so he probably didn't, he doesn't know how many took the east route.
Yep. What we'll be doing now, just after we get the first 10 through, is we'll put together a highlights video for the day. So there's a bit about the briefing, some of the stuff from the grid walk we didn't see earlier, and then we'll try and pick out some of the good bits from the coverage we've had today and where the key decisions have been made, and then top and tail it and push that out. So when you get up tomorrow morning, you'll have a highlights video you can show your friends. We'll also have the recording of the grid walk, and we've also been doing some interviews with some of the pilots, and they'll be in our video gallery, which you can find off the website. And we have a new feature called Fast and Furious, which we'll be showing you too. That'll be a bit of fun. You'll enjoy that. So that's as we just watch René fly down towards the finish. Just leaves me to say thank you to Alex and Carlos for their help today. Thank you very much indeed. I hope you found it as interesting as we did.
Absolutely. For myself, for sure, I haven't flown the Grand Prix for many years, and for Carlos, it's a new experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. And unfortunately, I won't be joining you the rest of the week. Maybe on Saturday again.
Maybe on Saturday. That'll be good. That'll be good. Yeah. Right. So we'll end our coverage there. We'll leave the silent wings running, watching the pilots come across the finish line, and we look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Cheers.